Good morning, the word for you today. Today is Thursday, November 2nd. I'm back, it's been 2 weeks. I know that Cam has called me a slacker. He wasn't wrong, but I'm so grateful that he was able to step in for me, but I am so excited to be back. So today, our devotion today is titled God Ideas. It comes out of the book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 28, verses 11 and 12. And it says, "Then David gave Solomon his son the plan of the vestibule of the temple, and of its houses, its treasuries, its upper rooms, and its inner chambers, and of the room for the mercy seat, and the plan of all that he had in his mind for the courts of the house of the Lord, all the surrounding chambers, the treasuries of the house of God, and the treasuries for dedicated gifts." So what is this? This is David giving Solomon a layout of the temple. So let's stop for real quick. So if you remember, David said that he wanted to build a temple to God. And through some not great actions on David's part, God says, you will not, because of your sin, because of your iniquity, you will not be the one to build this house. However, your son will be. And so David gives Solomon the plans to build the house, and Solomon is given the ability by God to do so. So first things first, let's talk about what the temple means. The temple was kind of this culmination of God's impact on the people of Israel. Now here's what I mean by that. So at the very beginning of time, God creates the heavens and the earth. And he creates Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve. He creates man and woman, he creates humanity. And with humanity, he makes a covenant. And this covenant is that we are to love the Lord our God, we are to be in relationship with him, and we are to tend to his creation. Well, humanity didn't do a great job at that. So God had another idea. God had not a backup plan, but we'll say a backup plan for ease of narrative. And so then Noah comes around. And God tells Noah, build the ark. And it's a strange idea that God's given him. And Noah says, okay, sure. And he does that. And sure enough, just as God said, rains fall, the people drown, and the entire world is covered in flood. And God establishes a second covenant with Noah. And he gives him a couple more guidelines, establishes courts, establishes that, hey, it's not a good idea to murder, it's not a good idea to steal. That's kind of it for a while. And then there's this guy named Abraham. And Abraham comes in, and God makes a covenant with Abraham. And when he makes that covenant with Abraham, he begins this long and arduous process of forming a relationship and maintaining a relationship with the people that are descended from him, specifically through his grandson, who we know as Israel. And so all of this has been covenant after covenant after covenant, building upon that initial godly idea of humanity being caretakers and stewards of the world around us, shepherds of the world that God has made. And yet, the temple is said to be this culmination of that. Why is that? Well, for a long time, humanity hadn't been able to converse with God in the way that the ancients did. There was this belief of separation. We may say it was because of sin or because of our selfishness, or maybe God was just quiet. But whatever it was, there was a separation between humanity and God that the Israelites didn't know what to do with. And they remembered their stories. They remembered the stories of Abraham conversing with God. They remembered the stories of Moses going into the tent and meeting the physical presence of God. And so these Israelites, I can only assume David said, okay, this is what we have to do. We have to rebuild a temple, rebuild the place of meeting where God can dwell among us once again. And so that's what they did. So the temple became the center of Jewish life. Not because it was significantly beautiful, although it was, but because it was believed that the temple was where God could reside. And yet the temple breaks. The temple's razed to the ground. The house of God is destroyed, crumbled into nothing, and laid barren. And Israel, the Judahites, the Jewish people are awestruck, horrified. And yet there's this idea that God's still there. There's this idea that God is not bound by a house. God is not limited to the nations of Israel. God is not limited to the borders of the Middle East. But there's this idea that grows, that God is so much bigger than this, so much greater than this, and that he is so much more holy than what we may have given him credit for. And so this idea continues through the second temple and to Jesus. And with Jesus, there's this final new God idea. And this idea says something really simple. It says, I have come for you so that you may come with me. It is Jesus saying, I have fulfilled the law, have made its commands complete, not because it was my divine destiny to, but because I loved you. And so God has this strange and utterly unimaginable idea that humanity can once again live in perfect harmony with him. And to ensure that, he sent Jesus. So all that to say, what's the God idea in your life right now? Maybe it's turning to him. Maybe it's giving a part of yourself away. Maybe it's reaching out to that person who you can't stand. But what is that idea that is so far out there that the only person it can come from is God? Have a nice day.